Welcome back to the Dark Side. I'm your host, Brianna.
I'm Dyson.
And this is Dark Adaptation. Episode 67.
67. We're almost there, boys.
Oh my god.
Getting close.
2 weeks.
The old switcheroo.
Hopefully last week you enjoyed our little best of episode. It was a long weekend and we were out of town. Just having a good grand old time, you know?
Yeah.
Didn't get around to finish writing or recording, so you got a best of and hopefully you liked it.
Yeah.
I want to listen to that one again.
Montauk Project?
Yeah, Camp Hero and the Montauk Project.
Yeah.
Go listen to it again, make sure it's still good.
Now that we've released it again.
Today we're discussing Flying Tiger Line Flight 739.
Flying Tiger Line.
Line.
Oh.
Line like airline.
Line.
Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 that disappeared over the Western Pacific Ocean in March 1962. Now, I'm going to talk about quite a few locations. So there will be a map of all of the spots I'm talking about, the stops that this plane is going to be making and stuff like that. That will be on our Instagram at Dark Adaptation Podcast. So why don't you go over there, follow us, and check out that map just so you can follow along, see where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start by getting to know this aircraft. Flying Tiger Lion. Flying Tiger Line was a scheduled air carrier founded in 1945 and incorporated in the state of Delaware with its principal business office in Burbank, California.
Okay, well, everyone knows we have to do this now.
Okay.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
Thank you. I was like, if he does not make a Wayne's World joke at Delaware, we're breaking up. It was one of the largest military charter operators during the Cold War era for both cargo and personnel. Flight 739, which is the flight that we're focusing on today, was a Lockheed aircraft, specifically a L-1049 Super Constellation airliner.
These names are fucking sick.
I know. Flying Tiger Line. I think
Super Constellation.
if you always were like flying this line or like affiliated with it in whatever way, people would say it was just the Flying Tigers.
That's sick.
But yeah, Super Constellation. So when I talk about the plane, I'll probably just say like Flight 739 or say Super Constellation. Switch between the two.
Now you know.
This model was introduced in December 1951 and produced specifically for the United States Navy and the U.S. Air Force for transport, electronics, and airborne early warning and control. Flight 739 was Super Constellation N6921C, and she was manufactured on May 19th, 1957. So, like I said, the story is taking place in March 1962. So this plane, the Super Constellation, is only 5 years old, but she was impeccably maintained, and she had 17,224 flying hours under her belt.
Wow.
So she was well traveled.
Yeah.
So our story begins on March 14th, 1962, and this Super Constellation had been chartered by the U.S. Army for military air transport. The total number of people aboard Flight 739 was 107, 96 passengers, and 11 crew members. So the crew were all California-based civilians and consisted of 3 pilots, 2 flight engineers, 2 navigators, and 4 stewardesses. Stewardesses, stewardesses. For stewardesses.
Stewardesses.
The flight was under the command of Captain Gregory P. Thomas. So actually, Captain Greg.
Captain Greg.
Captain
Captain
Gregory.
Greg of the Flying Tigers.
Flying Tiger, Captain Greg at your service.
Sick.
Captain Gregory P. Thomas. So Captain Thomas was an experienced pilot who had been employed with the Flying Tigers since July 7th, 1950. So that's almost 12 years. So he was with them for a while. He had 19,500 flying hours.
Holy shit.
Yes. And over 3,500 of those hours were in Lockheed 1049 aircrafts, so super constellations.
So he's not new to it.
No, he's like, bruh, I got like closer to 4,000 flying hours in this
no
plane.
Cap.
Bet.
No cap. Bet. For reals.
For reals is no cap.
It's lit.
Fucking lit, fam. So
Just lost all our listeners.
I hate myself. I don't even know what I just said. So, yeah, Captain Thomas, he was a seasoned and trusted pilot. This guy knows how to fly a fucking super constellation.
Yeah.
93 of the 96 passengers were members of the U.S. Army, most of which were electronic and communication specialists, and the remaining 3 passengers were members of the South Vietnam Armed Forces.
Okay.
The flight was headed to Tan Son Nhut International Airport in Saigon, South Vietnam, with orders to relieve soldiers who had been training South Vietnamese troops to fight the Viet Cong guerrilla force, who were supported by the North Vietnamese Army.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you know about the Vietnam War.
Oh, I know that you play Fortunate Son whenever you mention it.
Okay.
Dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun. Bow now. Bow now. I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so at this point in time, because it's during the Vietnam War, Vietnam was split into 2. There's like the North Vietnam, South Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
North was communist, South wasn't.
So we didn't like that.
And they were fighting.
Yeah, the U.S. saw that and was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, because it's Cold War as well. It's Cold War era. So there's a huge resistance from places like America for more communist nations to keep growing. So they were like, let's go and base ourselves over there in South Vietnam and fight the communist Vietnam. So yeah, they were very much infiltrating the area.
Yep.
And I didn't know that Vietnam War was technically not a war because war was never declared. It's like called the Vietnam War, but war was never declared. They're just over there fighting.
Oh.
Right?
Well, okay. Is that like having a thumb war, but you don't do the 1, 2, 3, 4 I declared thumb war, so it's not technically legal?
I guess so, yeah.
Non-official war,
Yeah. It
Right.
said, like, when I was reading it on Britannica, which is like my favorite site. I love Britannica.
Mm-hmm.
It said the U.S. has only declared war 6 times, and like 3 of those times were during World War II. They never declared war for NAM.
It's one of those technicalities where it's like we now have to call it a conflict because we don't want to admit what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say that because I didn't know that. I don't really know anything about the war in Vietnam. So as I was reading it, I was just like, wait, they had Vietnamese soldiers on their plane? That's so strange. Weren't we fighting? Like, wasn't the U.S. fighting them?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. It was divided.
Mm-hmm.
North and South. North is communist, South is not.
Yeah.
So U.S. was working with South Vietnam troops to fight the Viet Cong guerrilla force who were supported by the North Vietnamese army, and that's why this flight was going over there.
Okay.
It's like, we gotta go and relieve some soldiers, man. It's our turn to get in there and start fighting.
Train
I know a lot about war.
fighting.
So, after a meticulous search of every person and their luggage, the passengers and crew boarded Flight 739 at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California, and departed at 5:45 GMT on March 14th, 1962. So, GMT is Greenwich Mean Time, and because we're in the 60s, GMT was used as like the standard time when you're um I guess making reports or tracking or whatever, then you go off of like this London based time.
Okay.
So any time I use is GMT, but it
GMT.
doesn't really matter because we're just starting here at 5:45, and that's how we're like keep track of it, because this flight starts in California and it's going all the way across the Pacific into like Vietnam, right? So you're
Hmm.
going through all these time zones. So they just keep it GMT
Okay.
just to like better track it.
Yeah.
So there was 4 planned refueling stops, with the first being at Honolulu International Airport in Hawaii. I love the word Honolulu. Honolulu.
I was gonna say it's lit, but like it literally is right now, so it's not really in taste.
Oh, good lord. The plane landed in Honolulu at 17:44 GMT the same day. And that's a long ass flight. That's a 12-hour flight, just straight shot across the fucking ocean over to Hawaii. Minor maintenance was needed on the ignition systems of cylinder 18 on engine 1 and cylinder 6 on engine 3, where several coils, leads, and spark plugs were replaced. Now, I wish I knew more about planes and if this really is minor maintenance,
Hmm.
and if it's even like a normal maintenance to have to conduct at a stopover for fuel, because that's what everything is saying, is like, this is just minor maintenance. And I'm like, you had to replace leads and coils and spark plugs
Hmm.
on multiple engines that needed to be checked. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's minor maintenance.
Yeah.
Any plane mechanics out there? Is this minor maintenance? Is this normal? Flight 739 was delayed for an additional 30 minutes because of complaints by the stewardesses concerning inadequate crew rest facilities on board. So basically, there should have been, because there's 4 stewardesses, there should have been 2 passenger seats reserved for them so that during the flight they can rotate between the 2 of them sitting and whatever.
Hmm.
But there was only 1 seat for them to share. So when they arrived in Honolulu, the senior stewardess was like protesting, like, there's only 1 fucking seat for the 12-hour flight for us to sit in.
Yeah.
Like, our feet are killing us,
Yeah.
or we're sitting on the fucking floor. So they were given a mattress to sit on.
Okay.
And it was like crammed into this little, like, basically crawl space on the plane.
Wow.
Yeah. So after almost 3 hours, flight 739 departed Honolulu at 2040. 2040? Is there like a way to say, because it's 24-hour clock?
Yep.
Is there a way to say 2040? Do you just say 2040? It's like 2040 hours.
I think it's just 2040. I think you're right. Like, oh, you're like 2100 hours.
Yeah,
And that's like
but it's not.
9 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So no.
No, I don't think so.
After flying just over 7 hours, Flight 739 made its second refueling stop at Wake Island Airfield at 3:54 GMT on March 15th. The plane was refueled and again minor maintenance was needed, this time on cylinders 2, 15, and then 18 again of engine 1, and cylinder 4 on engine 3. And coils, leads, and spark plugs were again replaced. So, like, is this normal?
Do you have to
This
replace it that much too?
this seems crazy. It doesn't seem normal.
Seems weird.
But in the reports, reading through the investigation that was done, it's like, this is normal. That's what they keep saying. It's normal. It's minor maintenance. It's good they caught it. There's nothing wrong with this. It's a long fucking flight. I'm just like, I wish I knew more about planes.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if that's a normal amount of maintenance.
Yeah.
During this stop, the four stewardesses disembarked the plane and swapped with four others. And they're probably like, have fucking fun. You'll be sitting on a mattress.
Stinks. There's so many farts lodged into that thing by now.
And they're on board with, because they're the only women. It was four women,
Hmm.
obviously stewardesses. And that means, what, 103 people are all men? 103 men, four women.
Yep.
They're probably like, it stinks in there. Those military boys are stinking.
There's like a sweaty hamster in there.
But yeah, they're just like, fucking peace out, have fun, one seat and a mattress.
Yep.
Enjoy the rest of your flight. So, after roughly an hour and 20 minutes, Flight 739 departed from Wake Island Airfield at 05:15. After flying 6 hours, Flight 739 made its third refueling stop at Anderson Air Base in Guam at 11:14. The super constellation was inspected. Everything appeared fine. There was no mechanical work needed this time around, which is good because if it was like again,
I'd have been like, something's fucking up the spark
this
plugs then. Something.
oh, everything, these engines, spark plugs, coils, leads.
Hmm.
What the hell's going on here? After so yeah, this time around they got their fuel, no problem, no maintenance is needed. After roughly an hour and 45 minutes, the flight departed the Guam Air Base at 12:57 en route to its final refueling point, which was supposed to be Clark Air Base in the Philippines.
Okay.
At 13:25, Captain Thomas contacted Guam International Flight Service Station. If I don't know if I have to say that again, but if I do, I'm just going to say Guam IFSS. So he requested a change in altitude from 10,000 to 18,000 feet. And he didn't give a reason for the change, but he was directed to contact Guam Center for permission instead of the Guam IFSS. So he did, and he was granted permission to change to a higher altitude. About an hour later, at 14:22, Captain Thomas radioed a routine check-in message to give his position, which was 280 nautical miles, or 520 kilometers, or 320 miles west of Guam. And that's where they had last refueled. They had 8 hours and 12 minutes of fuel remaining, and it was estimated they would arrive at their final refueling location at Clark Air Base in the Philippines at 1916. So that was all well and fine. That's a standard message to receive from the captain. Guam IFSS confirmed this message and later stated Captain Thomas was fine and gave no indication of any difficulty on board. There was no trouble. It was just routine.
Hmm.
Around 1530, the Guam IFSS experienced temporary communication difficulties with heavy radio static due to another flight in the area. So at 1539, the Guam radio operator attempted to contact Flight 739 to obtain its 1530 position report. It's
Okay.
like 1530 is when we should have got the report. We had all of that static. We were communicating with another plane. We're 9 minutes late, but we're checking in. We need your status.
Hmm.
Despite numerous attempts, radio contact could not be established. After radio operators failed to establish contact with Flight 739 and it failed to land at Clark Air Base to refuel at the estimated arrival time of 1916, search and rescue operations were initiated at 1943 by the Joint Rescue Coordination Center at the Agana Naval Air Station in Guam in conjunction with Clark Joint Air Rescue Center at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines.
Okay.
So two search and rescue operations from the Philippines and from Guam
Hmm.
came together, and they're like, it's been half an hour. This plane was supposed to land for more fuel. It hasn't. Let's go.
Yeah.
At 22:27, the aircraft was officially declared missing, and it's seems like such a random time, but they picked 22:27 as the official declaration that this flight is missing because this is when the fuel would have been exhausted
Oh, okay.
because it had to obviously land in the Philippines for more fuel. So they were searching for like I guess 3 hours, a little over 3 hours.
Hmm.
Plane never landed, and they're like, okay, we have to declare it missing because it doesn't have fuel
Can't
anymore.
go anymore.
Yeah,
Plane can't go.
it can't.
Can't go.
No fuel.
Plane not up.
Probably down.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. It's disappeared.
Could be gliding though.
United States Navy officials reported that they believed that the aircraft had crashed closer to Guam than the Philippines, based on the flight's trajectory, its last known location, and the time communication seized, all of that. So, whatever fucking math they do to determine where the flight went down,
Hmm.
closer to Guam than to the Philippines. The Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Marines ordered aircraft and ships to the area to assist in what they hoped was a search and rescue effort. The
Yeah.
first day of searching continued overnight. Over the first 2 days of the search, vessels searched 75,000 square miles, or 190,000 square kilometers
Holy
of
fuck.
ocean. Then because they had so many vessels out there, I read a newspaper article and I think it was 153
Okay.
vessels, and they were doing this like crisscross sort of pattern where they were all designated an area and they were just searching.
Yeah, that makes sense. God, that's gonna be such a fucking.
Oh my god, I
There's
know.
so. When America's at war, like all their ships are probably up there. And they're
Hmm.
like, all right, take the whole fucking fleet. Let's go.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of the places that they're landing for fuel is like specifically air bases, U.S.
Hmm.
Navy, Air Force bases and stuff.
Hmm.
So, and these are like the main islands on the way. So, yeah, they definitely have a fleet of vessels, whether it's air or ship,
Hmm.
in the area. So, yeah, that was a huge effort being made to find this plane and all of its passengers. And officials also gathered to do a step by step, quote, refly of the route that Flight 739 had taken.
Did they just tried the proverbial have you tried retracing your steps?
Yes.
Like they're finding lost keys?
Yes, they did. They were like, this is a great idea because then we'll find clues as to where this plane vanished to.
What do they expect to find? Like some floating in the air?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I think they didn't know. They're like,
Yeah.
how can it just disappear?
Yeah.
Like, I guess we'll just do this.
Hmm.
Let's refly. It didn't really turn up anything.
No.
Search efforts included aircraft from Clark Airfield, the United States 7th Fleet, the Air Force detachment at Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, Japan, and numerous ships and aircraft from various U.S. bases in the Western Pacific. Like
Hmm.
I basically just said in so many words.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just am better at writing than I am at speaking, you know?
Oh, same. But like to a worse degree.
So naturally, everyone wanted to know where the flight went, what happened, all of that. They're like, how the fuck is a plane with 107 people just gone? It's
Yeah.
just gone. This plane was full of military personnel en route to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, what? Where's this plane? At Wake Island Airfield, the Super Constellation had filled up on 9.5 hours worth of fuel. So a lack of fuel shouldn't have caused a problem at the time that it had last communicated and stuff.
Hmm.
It had hours worth of fuel.
Yeah.
It was also well below the allowable gross weight. So apparently, when it took off from Guam, it weighed 132,554 pounds, and the maximum was 141,845 pounds. So that is well below.
Yeah.
And all of the weight, including the fuel, had been evenly distributed, so the center of gravity wasn't impacted at all. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was good.
Yeah.
At the time of the disappearance, the sky was clear and the sea was calm, so a natural disaster was unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
And records indicate that no turbulence occurred or was expected on this flight path. So they're just at this point don't know what happened, but they can start ruling out what didn't happen.
Right. Okay.
Did
So they
that?
were just
I was like, did that make sense?
yes, it did. So they're just figuring out. They're like, okay, well, it definitely wasn't these things.
It
So what was it?
couldn't have run out of fuel. We know that.
Yeah. It's like when
Uh,
a car, like, imagine someone's driving from point A to point B, and they're like, okay, well, it didn't get to point B. You can easily rule out like, well, it wasn't gas because it was a full tank and it's like 4 kilometers away,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, they're just kind of going like,
Yeah, it's not raining. I didn't pop my tire, like whatever.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're like, this thing had a fuck ton of fuel. It was well below the weight. Weather wasn't bad. Well maintained, as we know. Literally has been having maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So airline officials told the media about the same. They're like, well, we know it wasn't these things, but like we don't know where it is.
Yeah.
And they were also telling the media how they're vigorously searching and investigating what happened because they were fucking out there searching.
Mm-hmm.
But they did pose a theory as to the fate of the plane, and they said that they were not ruling out that foul play was involved. They suggested this as a possibility because Flight 739 was one of two flying Tiger Line flights with military connections that had been involved in incidents on the same day.
On the same day.
On the same day.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So both Flight 739 and the other aircraft, which was also a super constellation, so they're
Mm-hmm.
the same planes. I'll say Flight 739 about the one that we're talking about, and with this other flight, I'll just call it the cargo plane.
Okay.
So both Flight 739 and the cargo plane departed from Travis Air Force Base in California around the same time. So they both left, and this was on Wednesday, March 14th. And they had both encountered, quote, difficulties. So as we know, Flight 739 was en route to South Vietnam by heading west straight across the Pacific Ocean. But the second flight, the cargo flight, was headed north to go Alaska way.
Okay.
So some
The
reports...
shittier way.
Yeah, so I was trying to piece together, like, why? Like, is there a reason that would happen? But, so some reports say that this cargo plane was carrying, quote, secret military cargo. And others just say it wasn't a secret. It's military gear and supplies. It's cargo.
Mm-hmm.
And it is going to the same place. It's also going to Saigon. But regardless of what it's carrying, it's cargo. And it had to go this designated route north, likely because of what it's carrying. So if there's supplies in there that are combustible or they're explosive or they're more
Mm-hmm.
sensitive or whatever, it can't travel with regular passengers. It has to just be designated cargo plane.
Yep.
And then depending on what the material is that it's transporting, it could be subjected to more frequent check-ins, and that means that it has to stop more. And if you're going across the Pacific Ocean, you can't just stop.
Yeah.
Like it took 12 hours just to get to Honolulu.
Yeah.
So it has to go more north because then there's so many places that it can stop. So if it goes by route of Alaska, there's like off the coast of mainland Alaska, there's like a stretch of islands that is more places this flight could stop.
Yeah.
So
So if it's plus like I was gonna say it's probably logistics. Like it makes sense too because like military equipment's expensive.
What the fuck?
It's expensive as shit. And I was gonna say like if you're flying it by the coast, like one you're not over civilians obviously, but it's also right there. if they need to go pick it up. If it like crashed, they're gonna be like, we know exactly where that is. We're not searching the Pacific Ocean. We're searching our shoreline.
I love how the cargo's more precious than their
Oh, fuck
soldiers.
yeah, it was. They wouldn't have sent their fucking soldiers over if they thought otherwise.
Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably why these two flights, even though they're going to the same place, they're part of the same quote mission. That's why they're flying different routes, apparently. I don't fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't there. This is just what I can piece together. It's based on old
I
newspapers.
wasn't there, man.
What the fuck do you want from me? 1962, I don't remember it. So the cargo plane had crashed on the
Water.
Adak, I don't know. Adak Islands off the coast of mainland Alaska. And it had caught fire, and this fire killed one of the men on board. I don't know how many men there were, but it was just a cargo plane, so I think it was a smaller crew.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is on the same day that Flight 739 seemingly vanished, and the cause of this crash with the cargo plane was not really discussed. It's not reported on in newspapers. I don't know if that's just because it was overshadowed by the fact that Flight 739 is literally missing,
Mm-hmm.
and resources were being put into that more, and media coverage was more about the missing flight.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exact same plane model on the same mission, carrying cargo, whether it's secret military cargo or not. It's carrying a fuck ton of stuff for the military.
Mm-hmm.
Crashes on like an isolated island and kills a man. On the same day that the other plane goes missing.
Mm-hmm.
The same other plane. In the statement released to the media, Flying Tiger Line stated that the two occurrences could be connected by a conspiracy to sabotage or hijack the planes. But this is all just them being like, listen, we're running with our whatever we can here because we have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, that's basically all I have to say about the cargo plane that crashed in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go back to Flight 739. And officials received word that a message had been received by McKay Radio in Manila, which is in the Philippines, from a tanker crew about what they saw over the Pacific Ocean around the time that the super constellation vanished.
Okay.
You got that? You look confused.
Yeah, no, I was picturing in my head, imagine seeing something go wrong
I
with
know.
a plane while you're sitting in the tanker in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I would shit.
I know.
I'd be like, those poor fucks.
It would be wild. It would be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So this crew was aboard the super tanker. Also, I don't know what it is, but they love a super constellation, super tanker.
They do love super tankers, super constellation.
God.
Yep.
So this ship is a super tanker. It's called the SSTL Lenzen, and the crew aboard this tanker observed what appeared to be a midair explosion, approximately 500 miles west of Guam, which lines up with where Flight 739 would be, because this was at around midnight local time, and it lines up with what the last message was sent by Captain Thomas and the estimated trajectory, all of that. So the Civil Aeronautics Board, which I'm just going to call CAB.
Okay.
Civil
Thank you.
Civil Aeronautics Board. I can't keep saying that.
Yeah.
CAB. They were a part of this investigation into the plane's disappearance. So they go and they interview the crew members from the tanker who witnessed this supposed mid-air explosion. And the crew said that around 15:30 or midnight local time, the tanker... What the heck did I write here? Around 15:30, the same time radio frequency goes haywire.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I was going haywire. It's everything I already said.
Yeah.
Around
There's the radio frequency that fucked up. They kind of lost the plane at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So now you kind of wonder, like, hey, well, maybe the whole radio frequency haywire was
It's weird.
related to the boom.
Oh my god, maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't even put that together, but totally.
Yeah.
So, yes, around 1530, this tanker crew observes what they say is a vapor trail, or, quote, some other phenomena resembling a vapor trail.
Right over our country club. It was weird. Jim wrote a song about it. You want to hear?
The vapor trail passed behind a cloud, and then an explosion occurred, which was described as, quote, intensely luminous, with a white nucleus surrounded by a reddish orange periphery with radial lines of identically colored lights. The crew said it was a, quote, bright light strong enough to light the ship's decks.
Okay.
The report from the tanker crew goes on to say, quote, the explosion occurred in two pulses lasting between 2 and 3 seconds, and from it, two flaming objects of unequal brightness and size apparently fell at disparate speeds into the sea. During the last 10 seconds of the fall of the slower of the two objects, a small bright target was observed on the ship's radar.
Okay. That fucking thing split in half midair.
Apparently.
Oh,
And
something blew up in the cargo hole.
something definitely blew up. And
Uh-oh.
it's in two pieces. One is smaller than the other and falling slower because it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'd imagine that'd be the tail.
it's weird because the smaller, uh,
Yeah. Like, yeah. I was just thinking, I was trying to think back to, like, all the, like, the old World War II clips where you see, like, because they brought cameramen onto those B-52 bomber things. They
mhm,
would always show, like, one going down and it always split in half or something.
yeah,
And I was trying to remember, like, which one fell faster. And I was like, well, the tail would fall slower because it's smaller and shit. But then I was like, well, those fucking big wingspans kind of make it fall like tissue paper.
yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I can't like visualize it in my head, but
Mm-hmm.
basically they're saying two pieces, both were absolutely on fire. One was burning way stronger than the other, and we picked it up on our radar. We saw it. The tanker crew were worried that they had witnessed an aircraft explode, and they're like, maybe people are in trouble. And so they proceeded to the location where the fireballs had appeared to fall into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And they attempted to contact U.S. Navy stations at Manila, but they couldn't get through for whatever reason. So they continued searching for anyone in distress just on their own. But they were unable to find any trace of the falling objects or any people, maybe that had like parachuted out.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't any like signs of distress, no flares, no parachutes, like nothing.
Yeah.
And they searched for 5.5 hours. Like they were dead set on seeing what happened here because they really were scared and worried that they saw a fucking plane explode.
Yeah.
So we can assume that there wasn't any visibility issues because the captain of the tanker noted that the weather was, quote, moonlight, clear atmosphere, quarter covered sky by small cumulus evenly distributed. So it was a nice, fairly
Why did you read
clear.
it? You wrote it down like a recipe.
I
Plated
know.
well into the Pacific Ocean.
So it was a nice, fairly clear, calm night. So they could clearly see what they saw in the sky. They on the water it was visible, so they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have like mist wreckage or anything. So yeah, just straight up vanished.
Yeah.
Having found no sign of distress or a wreckage, the tanker crew assumed that the explosion must have been the result of a military or naval exercise. So they resumed their original course and they finally made contact with Manila to report what they saw. Because,
Mm-hmm.
again, we're in the Western Pacific, as we know, Cold War, Vietnam War,
Yeah.
US operations all over the place, and God knows whatever else is happening
Yeah.
over there.
It's a shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tensions are high.
A spokesman at the Rescue Effort Command Post in Guam said that as the time passed with no sign of the aircraft, quote, more credence is given to the possibility that the tanker may have seen the missing aircraft explode in flight.
Yeah, I think they fucking did. To
The
be
tanker,
quite honest.
I know it seems that way.
Yeah.
The tanker crew had no luck finding any remnants of the super constellation, and neither did anybody else searching for the plane. No trace of wreckage or debris has ever been recovered. During their search in the first few days, there was a couple of, like, I guess, like false hopes. There would be people who were like, "Oh, we've spotted some debris," and they would send in vessels to go and look at it, and every time it was like driftwood and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So there was a couple times when they were like, "Yes,
Yeah.
we think we found something," and it's wood.
Would.
Because no wreckage or debris has ever been found, it was impossible for officials to determine exactly what happened aboard the super constellation, or if this explosion even was the super constellation. The executive vice president of operations at Flying Tiger Line stated that experts considered it impossible for an explosion of the magnitude witnessed to occur on the super constellation in the course of a normal operation. So they're saying that there's nothing powerful enough on board that could completely blow it apart. And this means, quote, something violent must have happened.
So that's all kind of hinting towards like
The sabotage.
sabotage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, this plane was properly certified. It's regularly inspected, the whole 9 yards. Like, this was a very airworthy
Yeah.
plane. And again, Flying Tiger Line is basically in existence at this point for the US Navy and the US Air Force. So they're like anal about these planes being in peak flying
I will
condition.
not stand for you to make anal jokes about the U.S. Navy.
Well, if you pictured what you did, that's on you. And that's fine with me. I'm not going to judge some anal. That's fine.
A bunch of seamen want to get on a boat together.
Good lord. So, yes, they're saying this plane, if it exploded and it was at the magnitude witnessed by these tanker crews, well,
Yeah.
that was sabotage because there's literally nothing on board that could have done that. Plus,
Yeah.
even the passengers are like searched really well
Mm-hmm.
before they get on. So they're like, what the fuck happened to cause an explosion like that?
Yeah, they're like there's not enough fuel. Like the fuel wouldn't erupt like that. So I don't know.
The airline said sabotage of some kind was purely speculation, but they were considering it. And that there is no evidence to support this angle, basically because they have no evidence to look at.
There's no plane.
Yeah. So they were also open to the fact that they're open to the fact and considering that two of their planes being involved in violent incidents on the same day could be a horrible coincidence. And maybe the fate of Flight 739 was a tragic accident, and then the accident of the cargo plane in Alaska maybe was some sort of careless operation on the pilot's end.
Yeah. I'm always that guy that's like the buzzkill who goes, shit like this happens.
It's
Does
true.
fucking happen.
Like, coincidences
But like
exist.
someone saw shit.
It's just weird because it's like part of the same mission.
Yeah.
They take off at the same time, like the exact same time. Go two totally different ways, and they both have like a fiery end.
Yeah.
Like, Steph, are you listening? Can you please look into the stars on this day? Was something happening that would cause planes to just explode?
Mars took over for a little bit there.
I mean, it could. What are planes mainly made out of? Like metal? Mars rules iron, I believe.
And isn't like Mars like the planet of war or something?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know.
Oh. Steph?
Conflict, maybe.
Yeah.
I thought Saturn had something to do with war, though. Saturn's also kind of like an asshole planet.
I don't know,
I'm
man.
ruled by Saturn, so explains a lot. I'm ruled by Saturn in Pisces. I'm confusing. So, after 8 days of searching for the missing flight 739, it was called off. Searched 8 days, meticulous, didn't find shit.
Mm-hmm.
In total, the search had covered more than 144,000 square miles of ocean. That's 370,000 kilometers.
That's a fuck ton of fucking area
That's
to look.
an insane amount of ocean. And this makes it one of the largest search efforts to ever take place in the Pacific. To this day. This was 1962. CAB determined that, based on the tanker's observations of an explosion occurring at the approximate time and location which coincided with the estimated position of Flight 739, it's most likely the super constellation exploded mid-air. But because, quote, no portion of the structure has been recovered, it is impossible to determine whether a mechanical/structural failure or sabotage occurred in flight. If such a failure did occur, it can be reasonably assumed that it happened suddenly and without warning to crew, unquote. And this is because no emergency messages were received at all.
Mm-hmm.
No indication of trouble was ever radioed. The cab accident report concluded, quote, "It is therefore the opinion of the board that this witnessed phenomena was most likely N6921C in the process of demolishment. A summation of all relevant factors tend to indicate that the aircraft was destroyed in flight. However, due to the lack of any substantiating evidence, the board is unable to state with any degree of certainty the exact fate of N6921C."
Yeah. So
So,
like because they would do like a bunch of like crazy forensics,
oh yeah,
CSI stuff on all these little parts they pick up, and like
yeah,
meanwhile it's like we don't have anything for you. What do you think happened?
yeah,
It's like I don't know what the guy in the boat say.
yeah. What did the guys in the tanker say?
Yeah, I 100% believe them because they were really earnest about it,
Yeah, and
and they're like,
and they even said they went and searched for like 5.5 hours to see what the fuck, because it must have been so alarming. Plus, they also said that it was so bright that it lit up the whole deck of this tanker.
mm-hmm.
So it must have just been like a holy fucking shit moment.
Yeah,
Did we just witness an absolute tragedy?
yeah. Imagine like that's gonna be so terrifying because that plane. Like I wonder like how high up it would be from rel- relative to the tanker. I guess it maybe even when it was coming down, maybe that's when it lit it up as well or something. But like a plane really high up in the sky blows up, like you're gonna see like a little dot, but their whole deck lit up.
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
So it must have, because again, there is about an hour and 8 minutes unaccounted for of flight 739, because an hour and 8 minutes before this explosion, Captain Thomas had given his status report.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, he had received approval to be at 18,000 feet altitude.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't really know how helpful that is. It sounds like it's pretty high up, but not like so high.
Yeah.
But again, we don't have any sort of status reports, updates, so we don't know if maybe something happened within the flight that like cut out radio communication or like seized mechanical operation, so then it was like going down
Mm-hmm.
and then exploded
Yeah.
closer to the ocean. Like, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And that could explain why it was so bright.
Yeah.
Or because it was such a clear night and you're in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
can it just seem so bright?
That's also true. Yeah. Like those
because it was like local time midnight. It was
Yeah.
like 12:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I've heard of like I'm sure everyone's kind of seen those like videos where like someone's on an oil rig or something or on a tanker ship in the middle of the ocean, like there's no lights and like you can't see in front of your face.
Hmm.
And I remember,
If there's no moon, yeah.
yeah, and I remember some guy telling a story about how he was like walking from one section to like just a small section a little bit away from him, but he forgot his flashlight and the door shut behind him, so all the light went away,
Oh
and he's like,
God,
I nearly shat myself
so dark,
because he's
yeah.
like, it's so dark, you fall overboard, you're just dead.
Hmm.
And he's like, and I just like it took me forever to get to the other section because I was just like shuffling my feet. I'm
Yeah.
like, you just can't see anything. It's just you're blind.
Oh God.
It's yeah.
And oh, that's just so scary. So
It's gotta
yeah,
be a trip.
even like a tiny beam of light would illuminate quite a bit
Yeah,
if
I'd
it's
imagine a
that dark.
firefly probably looks like a high beam at that point.
Yeah. And there was moonlight. It wasn't like a full moon or anything, I don't think.
Hmm.
So you would have some light, and then whatever light I guess is coming from the tanker. But yeah, I feel like if there is an explosion that was this dramatic, it would light up quite a bit.
Yeah, it would definitely catch your attention.
The 107 people on board the Super Constellation have never been recovered. They are missing to this day, naturally presumed dead.
Hmm.
The total lack of wreckage and the fact that this aircraft was military related left the victims' families in the dark. And these families had been seeking answers for their loved ones' disappearances for decades. And the families of all these soldiers and the crew are like often forgot about.
Hmm.
Because, like, what happened to the flight? It disappeared. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a family of 107 people who are like, fucking cool. Anyway, is nobody going to give us any sort of answers? Or you're just going to hide behind the fact that it was a military plane so you can't talk about it?
Yeah.
But, like, our fucking family, our family members are on that plane
Yeah.
and they're just gone.
Yeah.
On top of that, the families were frustrated because the people lost in Flight 739 were never honored, like most soldiers were who died in the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
And this is because their deaths didn't occur in the combat zone. So their names were never recognized in any way.
That's terrible.
I know.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
93 US soldiers. And just because you didn't die in combat in the
And
zone.
3 South Vietnamese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The founder of Wreaths Across America had heard about this story, about how the families are like, yeah, apparently the US Army and Navy and everyone doesn't give a fuck that 93 of our men have just vanished in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And so Wreaths Across America was like, that's disgusting. I
Hmm.
will help you. And they created a memorial for the victims. The memorial was unveiled to the families of the victims along with a rifle statue and a wreath laying on February 22nd, 2021.
Oh. Okay.
These
We got around to it.
2021.
Yeah, it's
That's
so late.
59 years.
That's like one of those like heartbreaking like people are people are in the like late stage of life and it's
Yes.
like one of the like last things they get to see.
Yes.
It's like thank you, but like also like, you know.
And there is photos of the family,
Yeah.
but it's like siblings of the people who would have died in the crash,
Hmm.
and the siblings would have been young at the time, and they're old now. They're
Yeah.
old ladies and old men.
Hmm.
And like the parents of the men that would have died, they're long dead.
Yeah.
Like 59 years for any
Yeah.
sort of acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And not even acknowledgement from like America, like the US. It's just this like
Wreaths
nonprofit.
across America, yeah.
So this memorial was unveiled in Columbia Falls, Maine. The monument displays the engraving of each of the 93 U.S. Army soldiers, as well as the names of the 11 flight crew members. The inscription reads, quote, "Missing in action, presumed dead. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739 went missing on March 16th, 1962, with 93 U.S. Army soldiers on board. These men and their flight crew perished in what would become one of the biggest aviation mysteries out of the Vietnam War era. The names of those who gave their lives and who remain missing are inscribed here so that they will be said aloud and their memory will live on. Unquote.
All right.
It was seen as an amazing achievement for the families and the loved ones of the victims because, like I said, it's 59 years later and they had been trying their best to be vocal about how apparently no one gives a fuck that these 93 soldiers are dead.
Yeah.
But it was, like I said, erected by Wreaths Across America, which is the nonprofit. The United States has never officially recognized the victims for their service. Their names haven't been added to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington. Nothing like that.
That's really fucking gross.
There is a few senators, I believe, who have been talking about this and trying to, I don't know if it's to get their names put on the plaque, the memorial plaque or whatever, but there has been people trying to bring it up. This is pretty crazy. Sure, they didn't die in combat, but they were still soldiers.
Yeah, they were sort of soldiers and they died in duty.
Yeah, exactly.
What the that's just annoying to me. That really is upsetting. It's you put the uniform on, comes with a risk of doing that.
You're
and
doing
you died in a different area so you don't get recognized.
Yeah, you weren't in combat zone.
Yeah.
Even though, like you said,
you do that with cops all the time. Cops die on the line of duty from a heart attack sitting on the side of the road, and I'm not diminishing that.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
But
yeah. They get recognized. They recognize them. They say died in the line of duty, and there's a memorial page, all this stuff. You can't do that for people in fatigues going to the airbase.
Literally going to South Vietnam to relieve other soldiers for training.
Yeah.
And fighting the Viet Cong. Literally, that's why you're going.
Yeah. I don't get it.
And this is 62. So the war in Vietnam has been going on at this point for 6 or 7 years maybe. So these soldiers probably had already been there and were training. And it's really a relay basically of okay, let's keep switching, relieve people, have them come back.
Imagine trying to defend not putting them on. What are you gonna say? Sorry, I don't agree. We shouldn't recognize them. They died in transit.
Yeah,
what are you gonna say? What rational argument against it do you have?
And then imagine how these families feel.
Yeah.
Who are 93 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, and then like you said, there's the 3 South Vietnamese.
Yeah,
soldiers who also
I doubt
died. No,
they wouldn't.
No, like I said, there's 93 names inscribed.
Yeah.
The 3 South Vietnamese weren't put on the memorial plaque, but still 107 people went missing.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's why the families were like, what the fuck, man? So it's at least they got something. Wreaths Across America was like, this is really messed up. We will erect a memorial. You have at least a place to come to, pay respects. Their names are memorialized somewhere. But yeah, just crazy that the United States themselves have never even doing a ceremony, even just doing a fucking pour one out, man. Nothing.
Yeah.
And at this point, it's been, 61 years? At this point, 61 years? Lord. So, yes, to quote Jesse Beckett, who wrote an article for War History Online about the memorial, the mystery of what happened to the 107 people aboard the 1962 flight may never be solved, but for the families, the newly unveiled memorial will immortalize their missing relatives. And that is the tale of the disappearance of Flight 739, or possibly the explosion of Flight 739. I mean,
I'm going with explosion.
And I agree. I think that the crew on the tanker, it lines up so well. I don't think that's a coincidence. And if it is true that it exploded midair, It makes it the deadliest single aircraft aviation accident involving a super constellation.
Yeah.
Yeah, explosion.
Yeah.
But then it still begs the question, what caused this explosion? That every official investigator, officials involved with the airline is saying literally there was nothing on that flight that could have made that such an extreme explosion.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, was it sabotage?
I mean, who knows? I mean, like, I could see it being sabotage, especially because you had several stops near the actual war zone. So, like, I mean, sabotage is a fucking thing. It's like real. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
having them work on the airbase and planting something isn't too out of the ordinary. It'd be wild, but I could see that happening.
Me too.
Yeah.
They're isolated air bases too. Like, these islands are so small.
Yeah. The only thing that kind of makes me go like, well, like if there was sabotage, would it have to happen from within? Is because like the other flight took off and also was nowhere near the combat zone and caught fire. So
Yeah, and I don't know if it caught fire then crashed or crashed and then caught fire.
yeah, either
And
way.
again, no one knows what led up, no, or at least no one's talking about or reported on what led up to that one in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still like
Yeah, it's very odd.
it is weird, and I agree with you. Like, sure, coincidences do happen. That's absolutely true, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And like, what the fuck?
Yeah, this one's weird though, because like the mystery to me really is the like nothing on that plane should have been able to erupt like that. Uh, so like that's where I'm like that's a fucking weird one
Mm-hmm.
because I don't because I mean like I think I understand what they mean. Like they're like even if the fuel tank exploded, it wouldn't have been that.
It wouldn't have been,
Like you wouldn't have been like whoa in a fucking
yeah,
fireball.
a blinding explosion.
Yeah, you would just see
Huge.
flames, right? So
And to steadily be brightly burning,
and split the plane in half.
to split the plane in half and still be burning as it crashes into the ocean, like just a flaming ball.
Yeah. I was going like, oh, well, maybe someone shot it down during like cuz some fucking interference, but like I don't think so. Uh the plane would have seen it. The planes usually see that.
Yeah, or and
They
it
have
wouldn't. It's
warning
not
systems and stuff.
Star Wars. Like, you're not getting one good shot in, and then it explodes into 9,000 pieces. Like, the captain would have had time to be like, "We are being fired at."
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like an
They would have
RPG.
had like a yeah, they would have had like a missile lock or something warning being like, "Look out, you're about to get fucking shot down over the Pacific."
And like I had said in the beginning of this episode, the super constellation is literally made to have early warning air signs and stuff. Like,
Mhm.
it's designed to be a military plane.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. And there's a
It's a
crew of
Lockheed Martin.
11 people
Yeah.
all maintaining and monitoring this plane. Like,
Yeah.
it's just crazy that it happened so fast that no distress signal or anything was ever seen
Yeah.
or felt or
Definitely caught them
nothing.
off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think something.
I think it
I think
stinks.
yeah, something stinks. CIA's behind it again.
CIA. I really don't think so, but um also imagine how lucky those four flight attendants feel.
I know.
They got off.
They were complaining.
Yeah, they were like, I fucking hate this thing. Thanks for the one seat between the four of us. It's 1962. You know they have to wear heels on that fucking
You're damn right they do.
plane. And they're probably like, my feet hurt. We have to rotate between the three of us in this one shitty seat.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the fucking air mattress or whatever it was, mattress.
And you know everyone on the plane was miserable. Nobody wanted to be going to that fucking war. They're
No.
all just a bunch of guys who just like fucking I'm a fucking mechanic at home. What the fuck am I doing?
So those four women are probably like, oh my god, das vidanya.
Mm-hmm. That's got to be a pucker moment. You're just hearing that the next day.
Yeah, and being like, wait, what's missing? I
I'd be like,
literally was on that flight.
I'd be like, I want to go to work today. You know? Maybe I'll drive home.
I cheated death, and I think I'll stay home.
Hmm. Years before Final Destination came out, but they still knew.
Still new.
Hmm.
38 years before Final Destination.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was 38. I'm wrong. I think it was.
just going for it.
I think it came out in 2000. So, yeah. A side note here, Flying Tiger Line ceased operations in 1988 when it was bought by FedEx and merged with their air carriers in 89.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's fucking sick.
So technically still exists. It's just FedEx now.
Hmm.
Because, like I said, Flying Tiger Line was basically made because it was the Cold War.
So I'm going to make the assertion then
Hi, Kobe.
that Castaway is a sequel
Okay.
heavily inspired by this one.
Your brain is a weird place.
It's dark most of the time and really not active.
Kobe wants your attention. Oh,
Well,
you didn't give it to
Kobe,
him.
I'm working right now. I will aggressively pet you later.
He can't wait. You can do it before you think because that's it. That's all I got for you. I agree with what you're saying. I think it definitely exploded. I think the crew saw that explosion. I think personally sabotage is probably a part of it.
Hmm.
It's just too much of a coincidence and the fact that the explosion was so big. But I don't know, maybe there's a piece we haven't like put together. Maybe we're missing something. So if you're out there listening and you're like, I got a theory or I think it was this, let us know. You're going to be on Instagram anyway because you're going to be looking at the map of all of these stops.
Hmm. If you think it was aliens, tell me.
Yeah, if you think it was aliens or whatever the fuck you think. CIA,
Hmm.
I don't know. Dark Adaptation Podcast on Instagram. Let us know. I used quite a few sources for this episode. If you want to check those out, you can go to darkadaptationpodcast.ca. And while you're there, you can support us by buying us a coffee or checking out our merch. We still have gorgeous embroidered patches. But if you can't support us by buying a coffee or merch, that's okay. Just consider rating and reviewing our show wherever you're listening because that really helps too. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the dark side.
Bye bye.